One stirring proof of the New Testament's historicity follows a survey of 40-plus ancient non-biblical and non-Christian texts, which document more than 100 distinct facts about Christ. These sources demonstrate, among other things, that Jesus really existed, lived a virtuous and miraculous life, was crucified, was buried in a tomb that was empty 3 days later, and reportedly rose again. Of these 40-plus sources, 17 were authored by ancient non-Christian historians such as Tacitus, Suetonius, and Thallus, government officials such as Pliny the Younger, Emperors Trajan and Hadrian, non-Jewish writers like Lucian and Marbarus Serapion, as well as various Jewish writers including Josephus. In comparison to the more than 40 sources which overwhelmingly demonstrate Jesus' historicity, we possess only 5 accounts for the prominent Roman Emperor Julius Caesar and a mere 10 accounts related to Emperor Tiberius, who is a contemporary of Christ. It can be truthfully said we possess more real evidence for Jesus' life than we do for any other ancient person, even if the early eyewitness-written New Testament did not exist. As we review just some of the ancient non-Christian evidence for Christ during the next few sessions, please remember nearly all modern historians and scholars recognize non-favorable claims made by early hostile witnesses as certain truth. So, through the writings of ancient non-Christian witnesses, we have tremendous supporting proof for many important New Testament details concerning Christ in the early church. Josephus, a first-century Jewish historian and contemporary of Christ's resurrection eyewitnesses, is recognized by many scholars as one of the most important non-Christian authors who documented essential details about Jesus. His most remarkable Christ-related passage in Antiquities 18:3.3 states, "Now there was about this time Jesus, a wise man, if it be lawful to call him a man, for he was a doer of wonderful works, a teacher of such men as received the truth with pleasure. He drew over to him many of the Jews and many of the Gentiles. He was Christ. And when Pilate, at the suggestion of the principal men among us, had condemned him to the cross, those that loved him at the first did not forsake him. For he appeared to them alive again the 3rd day, as the divine prophets had foretold these and 10,000 other wonderful things concerning him. And the tribe of Christians, so named from him, are not extinct to this day." Portions of this passage have been disputed by skeptics who believe Christians changed the text. However, it is unreasonable to think Christians had both the motivation and opportunity to round up all copies of this relatively well-distributed Jewish text and insert a few select phrases without anyone, especially Jesus' critics, noticing. Truly, the manuscript evidence favors this specific translation, since it exists in all remaining copies of the Antiquities, and was cited by Eusebius near 325 AD within his Ecclesiastical History 1.11 in this exact form. No scholar has been able to produce a single ancient copy of Josephus' Antiquities which does not contain the passage I've just read. So we have no good reason to believe this is anything other than a genuine text written by a man who attempted to be honest, truthful, and historical. It is a well-established fact that Jews, of all first-century citizens, most highly valued the communication of truth. The skeptic bears the burden to disprove authenticity of this reading, and have so far been unsuccessful. As the evidence currently stands, we have confirmation from this revealing non-Christian account that Jesus was a real person and considered to be a wise man. Further, he was a doer of wonderful works, which is very likely a reference to the dominant first-century belief Jesus was a miraculous man. He was also a great teacher who had an unforced following of both Jews and Gentiles who believed he was the Messiah. Josephus also verified Jesus' death was desired by the primary Jewish religious leaders, and Pontius Pilate ultimately condemned him to die by crucifixion. Most importantly, this secular passage supports the claim Jesus really rose from the dead 3 days after his burial, and then physically appeared to many afterward. It also tells us Christ fulfilled Old Testament messianic prophecy, his followers were called Christians after his namesake, and Christianity persisted after the resurrection. Also, according to Josephus, Antiquities 29.1, Festus was now dead, and Albius was but upon the raid. So he assembled the Sanhedrin of the judges, and brought before them the brother of Jesus, who was called Christ, whose name was James, and some others, and, when he had formed an accusation against them as breakers of the law, he delivered them to be stoned. This text offers assurance for the New Testament facts that Festus was a real person, the Sanhedrin was a collection of powerful judges, Jesus was a real person, James was Jesus' brother, and James, a skeptic of Christ prior to the resurrection, endured the Sanhedrin's accusation and was willingly stoned, surely for his belief in Jesus' resurrection. Josephus further reported in Antiquities 18:5.2, "Now some of the Jews thought the destruction of Herod's army came from God, and very justly, as a punishment of what he did against John, who is called the Baptist. For Herod slew him who was a good man, and commanded the Jews to exercise virtue, both as to righteousness toward one another, and piety toward God, and so to come to baptism. This passage confirms the existence of Herod Antipas, a political leader in Jerusalem, who mocked Christ prior to his crucifixion, scourged and sent him back to Pilate for judgment, as well as John the Baptist, a good man who was executed by Herod, just as the New Testament teaches.